Man, listen, I've heard a lot of stories in my life, love stories, success stories, painful stories, but nobody warned me about the ones inside the Quran. Nobody told me these stories would grab me by the heart the way they did. I sat down thinking I was just going to learn something new. Instead, I found myself sitting there quiet, thinking about a baby floating inside a basket on a river, a man swallowed alive in the dark belly of a whale, a woman crying under a palm tree during childbirth, and a father lifting a knife over the son he loves more than his own life. All of it tied together by this deep, soul-shaking message about faith, fear, hope, and what it means to trust God when everything in your life feels like it's falling apart. And I ain't exaggerating. Some of these stories hit harder than anything Hollywood ever made. Like when Prophet Musa's mother put her newborn baby in that river. You know how emotional that is? You know what kind of faith or desperation it takes for a mother to do that? Or the story of Prophet Yunus sitting inside the stomach of a whale, thinking his whole life was over, but still calling out to God from the darkest place a human could ever be. And don't even get me started on Mary giving birth alone with the whole world judging her and God comforting her right when she broke down. And then there's Ibrahim and his son. That story will shake anybody with a heartbeat. And I'm telling you, when I heard these stories, I felt something. Not because I'm trying to sound deep, but because these stories are deep all by themselves. They're the kind of stories that stay with you long after you close the book. The kind that make you rethink the things you complain about. The kind that make you wonder how much strength God actually put inside human beings. And the kind that make you say, if they could survive that, maybe I can survive what I'm going through too. And that's why I had to talk about this. Because when you hear these stories the right way, not the cartoon version, not the kids' book version, but the real, raw, emotional version, it changes you. It pulls you in. It makes you sit still for a minute and think about your own life. And that's exactly what these stories did to me. Now let me take you into the first story that really grabbed me, and I mean grabbed me right in the chest, the story of Prophet Musa's mother. Because when Muslims explained this one to me, I had to sit back for a second. I'm a father, man. I got kids. I know what it feels like to love somebody more than you love yourself. So when I heard how this woman was living in a time where her baby boy was in danger the moment he entered this world, I felt that. This ain't a story about a prophet at first. It's about a mother terrified for her child. And every parent knows that fear. Picture this, a woman holding a newborn so tiny he can barely open his eyes. And she's hearing soldiers roaming the streets, hunting down baby boys, hunting them. Now, I don't care where you're from, that right there is horror. And the Quran doesn't tell it like some distant myth. It tells it in a way where you feel her heartbeat, her shaking hands, her panic. And then here's the part that stunned me. God puts this thought in her heart. Put him in a basket, place him in the river, and don't be afraid. Man, can you imagine that? We get scared sending our kids to school. We double check the car seat. We call them every hour when they travel somewhere. And this woman was told to put her baby in a river. A river, water rushing, waves moving, danger everywhere, and she had to just let him go. Trust that God had him, and she did it. With tears running down her face, with fear tearing her apart, she let that basket float away. And as a parent, that hit me hard. Because sometimes we're asked to trust even when everything in us is screaming not to. Sometimes we got to let things go and believe they'll end up where they're meant to be. But here's the miracle. The basket didn't just float anywhere. It floats right into the palace of the very man trying to kill baby boys. And then this is where the Quran gets beautifully poetic. God says he placed love for that baby into the heart of the Pharaoh's wife. So the woman whose husband was hunting babies ends up holding this one baby and falling in love with him instantly. Tell me that ain't emotional. Tell me that ain't powerful. A mother forced to let go, and on the other side of that river, God creates love in someone else's heart just to protect her child. And if that wasn't enough, God brings the story full circle. Musa's own mother gets hired to nurse her baby. So the same baby she let go comes back to her, safe, protected, fed, loved. Only God writes a story like that. And when I heard that, I said, man, how many times in life did I panic, thinking something was slipping out of my hands, not realizing it was actually slipping into God's hands? Then I heard the story of Prophet Yunus Jonah, and this one felt like a story every grown person can relate to, because it starts with frustration. It starts with a man who walked away from his responsibilities. He felt overwhelmed. He felt unheard. He felt like he wasn't making a difference. So he ran. You ever felt like that? You ever been so tired you just walked away from something, a job, a dream, a relationship, thinking you just needed to escape? That's Yunus. But here's the twist. God doesn't punish him with thunder and lightning. God sends him into the belly of a whale, not to destroy him, but to make him pause, to make him reflect, to give him space away from the world so he can hear his own heart again. Sometimes life does that to us. Sometimes we get swallowed by a situation, grief, depression, loneliness, failure, and we think it's the end. But maybe, just maybe, it's actually a moment God is saying, slow down, listen, come back to me. And in that darkness, with water dripping, stomach acids around him, no light, no sound, Yunus says something that shook me. He didn't bargain with God. He didn't say, save me. He just said, I was wrong. And there's no one who can help me but you. Pure honesty, pure surrender. Now that right there, that's a moment every human experiences at least once. When you stop blaming the world, stop pretending, stop running, and you just tell the truth. And God responds to that truth. God saves him. God brings him back to the shore, gives him another chance at life. When Muslims told me that, I felt it deep, because I've had whale moments, times where I felt trapped in something dark and didn't know how to get out. Times where I thought my career was over, my money was gone, my faith was shaky, my life was stuck, but it wasn't the end. It was a pause, a lesson, a time to look up instead of out. Then comes Miriam's story, Mary, and this one might be the most emotional of all, because she was a woman being judged by people who didn't know her story. She was carrying a miracle, but the world saw scandal. She was chosen by God, but people treated her like she was shameful. And she cried. She broke down beneath a palm tree. She said she wished she could disappear. And I thought, man, how many people today feel like that? How many people feel misunderstood, judged, alone? We live in a world where one rumor can destroy you. One mistake gets repeated more than all your good deeds. Miriam lived that. But here's the beautiful part. When she was alone, God talked to her, comforted her, told her not to fear, not to be sad, gave her food from the tree and water from a stream. And when she returned to her people with baby Jesus in her arms, the baby spoke. A newborn defended his mother. Talk about emotional. That moment ain't just spiritual. That's God saying, I see you, I defend you, I stand with you, even when people don't. And then you get to Ibrahim and his son, a story of sacrifice that makes every parent stop and think. A father willing to obey God even when the command broke his own heart. A son willing to trust his father even when he didn't understand. And right when the knife is raised, right when the world thinks it's over, God sends a ram, showing that the test was never about the sacrifice. It was about the heart behind it. That story teaches something powerful. Sometimes God tests your attachment not to take something from you, but to show you what you value most. And after hearing all these stories, I realized something. This book isn't trying to dazzle you, it's trying to reach you. These stories don't make prophets look perfect, they make them look human. Their tears, their fears, their loneliness, their faith, all laid out so you can learn from them. These stories changed how I look at life. And as I went through these stories, something kept coming back to me. Every miracle in the Quran happens when a person reaches the end of what a human being can do. The mother did everything she could, then she let go. Yunus tried everything, then he surrendered. Miriam held on as long as she could, then she cried out. Ibrahim's heart stretched to its limit, then God stepped in. It's like the Quran is saying, your job is to do your best. God's job is to take it from there. And that message, man, it's universal. It don't matter where you're from, what religion you follow, what color you are, how much money you make. Every human being hits those moments. Moments where you feel overwhelmed. Moments where life corners you. Moments where you're carrying more weight than your shoulders were built for. And these stories say, you're not alone. You're not forgotten. You're not at a dead end. You're just at the part of the story where the miracle hasn't shown up yet. And you don't even have to be Muslim to appreciate that. Because these stories aren't just lessons, they're reminders. Reminders that strength don't always look like muscles. Sometimes strength looks like tears. Sometimes it looks like saying, I can't do this alone. Sometimes it looks like letting go. Sometimes it looks like falling to your knees so you can rise again. And the more I listen, the more I realize the Quran isn't trying to make you feel small. It's trying to show you how strong you actually are when you trust something bigger than yourself. And when I finished learning about all these stories, I wasn't just emotional. I was humbled because I realized something. The Quran doesn't tell stories so you admire the prophets. It tells stories so you learn how to survive life the way they did, how to stand back up, how to keep walking, how to trust God even when the road don't make sense.